Yeah, Richard here, back on another episode of the Cosmic I Ching, Oracle of the Cosmic Way. And here we are on the Hexagram 31, Influence, which is Lake over a Mountain. The Judgment, Influence, Success. If one is firm and correct in taking the mate offered, it brings good fortune. Interesting. In this hexagram, the sage teaches the cosmic principles of relating and influencing. One of the cosmic meanings of influence is the active intervention of the sage in giving the gift of love. So this is going to be a fun one. To be firm and correct is counsel to refrain from seeking a mate, so that the true love relationship can arise as a gift from the cosmos. In a related sense, to be firm and correct means to refrain from trying to make things happen, through realizing that all great achievements occur through the intervention of the cosmic helpers, and that we merely assist in externalizing their influence. Good fortune refers to the gift of love itself, through which two people's suppressed and neglected true selves recognize each other. The purpose of this recognition is to give them an opportunity to free their true natures from the oppression of the egos within him. And here we get an idea of just how big of a problem this whole ego thing is. I mean, even the gift of love right here, one of the main purposes of it is to help free ourselves from the ego. Wow. In the process, their life force, their chi energy is renewed by the love that flows from the cosmos to and through them. For a love relationship to have the success indicated in the judgment, it is necessary for each partner to free himself from his preconceived ideas of what a love relationship is, specifically from beliefs that hold that it must be inextricably connected with the custom of marriage, or with ownership, rights, privileges, and moral rules. Due to its gift nature, the love relationship is subject only to the cosmic principles and will endure so long as each partner keeps his primary connection with the cosmic whole by being loyal to his inner truth. Being loyal to one's inner truth means to be centered within oneself and to firmly hold to what feels harmonious and correct. One acts only so long as one sees with clarity what is correct. The person consulting the I Ching allows himself to be guided to discover the inner truth of each situation. It reminds me of the summary to the judgment of the second hexagram, which goes something like, if a person tries to lead, he goes astray, but if he follows, he finds guidance. The term good fortune also points to other cosmic gifts, such as great inventions and discoveries that are often falsely accredited to humans, and abilities the cosmos gives to humans to perform great feats for which the people are but channels. Often the inventor, researcher, writer, performer, etc., credits the cosmos as the true source of his achievement, Einstein and Mozart being excellent examples. It is the collective ego that appropriates their achievements by making them into monuments of culture and by using them to prove the superiority of the human species. In another meaning, this hexagram refers to harmful influences we project upon the cosmos in the form of ideas, emotions, and attitudes. These influences include preconceived ideas, ego emotions, and attitudes, and ritually spoken words, as in sayings and mantras. Their influence has the power to objectify and freeze reality in time, which is putting a spell on something. Because all existence is composed of consciousness, however, negative human consciousness can have a destructive influence on the object of its focus. This hexagram also concerns the unconscious influences created in the personality by the ego through its use of false words, phrases, and images. Once integrated within the psyche as an active program, they become the source of impulsive and compulsive behaviors. In dreams, meditations, and hallucinatory states, they show themselves to be a part of the demonic sphere of consciousness, appearing as imps, demons, and dragons. The imps, which are behind the impulsive behaviors, generally speak in the psyche as demanding musts and shoulds. Demons appear in the psyche either as threatening animals or grotesque figures such as vampires. As voices, they speak repetitively, as if to hammer the same message over and over. Dragons take on overweening images of authority. Together, they have a paralyzing effect that prevents the person from moving forward in his life and are behind both his fears and his hopes. In the body, they create irregular responses such as heart irregularities, high blood pressure, compulsive eating disorders, and tics. Dragons are control elements that keep the whole demonic structure in place. They succeed through back of the mind threats that the person will become guilty if he rejects the program of the collective ego. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Although all three of these demonic elements form a self-reinforcing system, the demons and dragons originate with the imps. Imps, demons, and dragons cannot be battled in the psyche as objective entities, since any attempt at fighting them only strengthens the resistance and their ability to create new means of control. It is possible, however, to deprogram them phrase by phrase and image by image. Lines in the I Ching that speak of hunting have to do with finding the phrases and images that give life to these figures. So at base, they are figures, phrases, and images. Nothing more. Nothing more. Lines that speak of killing have to do with deprogramming them with the aid of the helpers. It is also possible to kill such elements in meditation. This hexagram also concerns the insidious means by which group egos expand their power and influence over other groups or individuals. One, by bullying them, by buying them through favors, isn't that the truth? Two, by integrating them through tolerance. Three, by evangelizing them. Four, by assimilating them. The latter is carried out by dismissing the true insights that come to individuals by claiming that they are already part of the group ego's beliefs and that there is already a name for them. Once the individual is brought into the group, his insight is dismissed as irrelevant. Beware the group ego. The lines of this hexagram show which body parts are affected metaphorically, of course, by these demonic elements. The toe, mentioned in line 1, for example, is the beginning place of impulsive movement. The calves of the legs, mentioned in line 2, indicate the area of the body that is influenced by demons. The thighs, mentioned in line 3, are the area influenced by dragons. These body parts, in turn, are connected with certain aspects of the psyche, which are located in the limbic system of the brain. The consciousness of the limbic system operates outside the thinking consciousness. Therefore, it is that part of the brain which the ego seeks to influence, like the back door. Since it is responsible for directing both the motions of the body and the emotions, uncontrolled behaviors are produced when it is subjected to these demonic elements. The hexagram as a whole shows how the collective ego influences the individual through its misuse of language. Here we go again. For example, it asserts that if a person follows his inner truth, he will endanger the social order. Well, let me tell you, this social order could use some endangering and his own place in it. In this articulation, the social order created by the collective ego is presented as the only order, without which there would be chaos. Presenting things in this way obscures the fact that a natural social order, which is in perfect harmony with the cosmos, is possible. Obliterating this possibility allows the collective ego to dominate society in the same way that the individual ego dominates and obliterates the true self. We are thus prevented from seeing that the natural order of society emerges whenever people follow their inner truth. That's all that has to happen. People following their inner truth. When we rid ourselves of the ego, we remove the sole support for the continuance of the collective ego. Finally, this hexagram is about the way we relate to other people and to nature. In relating to another, we are meant to distinguish between relating from ideas, which, when isolated from feeling, cause us to relate in vapid and insensitive ways that exclude the heart. It's the difference between talking at someone and with someone. Since we have been trained to think in human-centered terms, we're generally unaware of how our preconceived ideas about nature influence nature in the same way that projection spells and poison arrows influence people. An example is the way we put poisons on our lawns instead of asking for help from the consciousness of the grass and the grubs to come into balance with each other. The act of putting poisons out to kill the grubs not only poisons the groundwater on which humans rely, it puts a poison arrow on the grubs by viewing them as an invading army which must be fought, creating in them a demonic force that causes even more imbalance in nature. It's all about how we see things. The natural state of nature is harmony. When humans project their mistaken ideas upon it, as in seeing nature as intrinsically chaotic and needing man's taming, discordant conditions are created. To correct this kind of damage, each person needs to learn to keep his mind innocent, as in hexagram 25, innocence, which innocence, by the way, is not expecting not projecting. That is the innocent state of mind. Not expecting, not projecting, being somewhat neutral, centered, in harmony with your inner truth. Line 1, the influence shows itself in the big toe. The big toe is a metaphor for being moved by impulses rather than one's common sense. Impulses always come from the ego and its imp-like nature and are based on mistaken ideas and beliefs. Receiving this line makes a person aware that he is about to act impulsively, which would lead to misfortune. Receiving this line is counsel that before acting, a person needs to empty his mind of all petty likes and dislikes that make him look down on nature and his body. The correct influence comes from inner stillness, which both attracts the cosmic helpers and enables the correct spontaneous response to arise from one's inner truth. The cosmic helpers referred to are the metaphorical senses that are located in a person's body cells. Among these senses are a sense of wholeness, a sense of danger, a sense of caution, a sense of appropriateness, etc. As part of his feeling consciousness, the function of these senses is to defend him against harmful influences coming from without or from within in the form of spells, projections, and poison arrows. Whenever any such influence is invaded, these senses give signals through the nerves to make the person aware that he needs to look for the causes of his disharmonious feelings. When he fails to pay attention to these signals, they become stronger, causing an intense feeling of dis-ease. All such feelings of dis-ease are messages given by the helpers to awaken the person's attention. They are to be distinguished from the acute and sharp feelings of pain that occasionally accompany an invading poison arrow, projection, or spell. Pain indicates that harm is being done to specific parts of the body as well as to the psyche. It is a mistake to regard either the discomfort caused by the helpers or the pain caused by the injury as enemies that need to be fought. When we do this, we assign wrong reasons to the wrong places and create inner conflict, further weakening our natural defenses against the invading elements. If these elements are left untouched, they actively damage the host by living on his life energy. The ego, rather than defending the person against such harmful influences, feeds on the negative energy produced by spells, projections, and poison arrows. An example is blame that is put on a person to make him feel guilty. The ego feeds on the feeling of guilt, much the way a worm feeds on flesh. It also feeds on the negative energies produced by the inner conflict created when pain is stigmatized as an enemy. The bright idea, which the ego offers, that pain is the only important thing to address can be seen as a ploy to keep the harmful elements in place because the ego likes pain. Line 2, the influence shows itself in the calves of the leg, misfortune. Tearing brings good fortune. The calves are the part of the body that moves it forward. Influence showing itself in the calves is a metaphor for rushing to judgment or conclusions without seeing the whole picture. This can happen in 3 ways. 1, when through impatience, the person is not allowed the whole picture to reveal itself or is not inquired into the inner truth of the matter. Line 2, when he has a vested interest in seeing the situation from an egotistical perspective. Number 3, when through projecting fears or doubts upon the situation, he creates the results feared. In the latter case, he may believe he has been approaching the situation objectively, whereas in reality, he has created a spell, projection, and poison arrow. Tearing brings good fortune means that when we retreat from our preconceived ideas to ask the sage for clarity, we are helped see the inner truth of the matter. However, the sage can only help us when there's no impatience. Examples of images that have to do with impatience are the image that a disaster will occur if we do not act, or the self-important image that the whole world depends upon what we as humans do. Line 3, the influence shows itself in the thigh. Holds to that which follows it. To continue is humiliating. Receiving this line tells a person that the desire he thinks is coming from his heart is actually coming from the ego, referred to by the thigh, and that to follow it will bring him humiliation. Holds to that which follows it is a metaphor for a codependency between a person and the idealized image with which he is infatuated. He is like the young person who has fallen in love with love itself. Wanting love, the person has put himself under a spell, a compulsion to find someone who looks like his ideal. His body, because of its real need for nourishment, becomes victimized by this drive of the ego and its projected desires. Under the ego's influence, the body is no longer able to distinguish between true love and projected love. Once the body is dominated by the ego in this way, disappointment and humiliation invariably follow. This situation is a metaphor for all sorts of relationships that are based on the desire for something idealized. Psychotherapists, priests, and gurus all experience the projection of such desires upon them. If they cultivate or submit to this idealization of themselves, their influence is destructive to the person who idealizes them. Another aspect of this line has to do with the sense of smell. There is a smell that accompanies a person who wears an idealized image to gain a following among others. This smell is projected upon that person by the people who follow him and becomes part of his aura. To these followers, that smell is positive because it flatters their own sense of smell, which is under the influence of ego desire. All projections that are based on the sense of seeing are accompanied by smell. When the projection idealizes something, the smell is positive. When the projection demonizes something, the smell is negative. Such smells subconsciously influence the person who projects them, keeping him in the orbit of the person who smells good to him. This line often refers to a person who is held in the orbit of someone he idealizes, which is a spell. Another person may help free him from that spell with the help of the sage. Line 4, firm correctness brings good fortune. Remorse disappears. His thoughts go hither and thither, whatever. Only those on whom he fixes his conscious thoughts will follow him. Firm correctness brings good fortune refers to the effect that an influence which comes from the heart has on others. It penetrates to their inner truth. This line stresses the importance of keeping an open heart and a mind free of disharmonious thoughts. Then one's influence on others is good. The last two phrases, his thoughts go hither and thither, and only those on whom he fixes his conscious thoughts will follow, point to a person who is making an intentional effort to influence another by sending thoughts through the inner channel between them. His intention might be to provoke, to persuade, to subjugate, or to instill guilt. Such intentional efforts not only harm the other, they create a fate for the one who projects them. This line also speaks of the projections that emanate from a closed heart. An example is a person who has closed in his heart in order to deny his blame in a situation and to project that blame on another. A part of his denial is to mentally execute the other by seeing him as the culprit. This puts a spell on that person as well as creating a fate for himself. To free himself from his fate, he needs to accept that he was the one who incurred cosmic blame. He also needs to search out the cause for his incorrect action and free himself of it. Then he needs to remove the blame spell he's put on the other person. If he will make this inner effort, he will be freed from the fate he has created. A person can also receive this line when he has incorrectly said an inner no. One needs to check with the sage, the RTCM, whether it is correct to say the inner no in a given circumstance. The line can also refer to a group projection, which identifies someone or something as a culprit. The person taking part in this activity needs to be aware that continuing to do so will involve him in a group fate. He can free himself by saying the inner no to the idea of there being a culprit. Line 5, the influence shows itself in the back of the neck, no remorse. The back of the neck is the area of the body near the brainstem. Receiving this line is to confirm to us that the influence we feel is coming from the right place, and that it is correct to continue holding to our inner truth. On this account, there is no remorse. The back of the neck is the seat of the will. The firmness that allows a person to hold to his inner truth is due to his will. The strength of his will, in turn, is dependent on the condition of his self-esteem and to what degree the ego has turned the person's will to its purposes. The more true to his inner truth he is, the more his will is strengthened and renewed by the cosmos. The more he allows the ego to command his psyche and harness his will, the more the energy of his will is drained. Still, by calling on the sage for help, his will can be restored if he will use the strength attained to follow his inner truth. This is also one of the meanings of line 1 in Hexagram 42, increasing. We are accustomed to think of will as an energy that can be put towards something. In this definition, it appears to be like a constant stream that can be turned one way or the other. However, we can readily feel that our will can be strengthened or undermined. The energy of will has its origin in a feeling of robustness. The direction we give our will is of crucial importance, not only to the direction one's life takes, but to all matters of health. When the will is turned to serve the ego, the feeling of robustness is attacked by inner conflict, causing its energy to diminish. The feeling of robustness can also come from the ego when an image of success is being achieved. To a certain extent, the lack of success can be bridged by hopes of success and by self-delusions of various sorts. The word burnout, often used in connection with deluded enthusiasms, has to do with the exhaustion of these hopes and self-delusions, as the veils of delusion successfully fail and fall away. A collapse of will can occur at this point, and it can be beneficial, as Hexagram 51 shock tells us. If the collapse leads the person to cry for help from the cosmos and consequently reconnects him with his inner truth. The energy created by feelings of robustness comes from the body itself, where it is stored in the form of sugars and fats. One can say that the will is strongest when the conscious mind expresses the person's inner truth in the basic words, feelings of yes or no. When a person is unable to say a clear yes or a clear no, it shows that there are holes in his psyche and that his will lacks duration. The will can be mobilized temporarily, as Shakespeare shows in Henry V, when Henry, in a famous speech, rallies his troops to win the battle, but this kind of mobilization only patches the holes. Their undermining influence swiftly returns under other circumstances. True enthusiasm, as Hexagram 16 enthusiasm shows, mobilizes the helper of transformation and calls the entire cosmos to one's help. Holes in the will can lead to cancer, where the failure of will is such that the cells are no longer able to complete their electrical circuits. It is easy to understand how ideas and beliefs that denigrate the body create such holes. Line 6, the influence shows itself in the jaws, cheeks, and tongue. The mention of the jaws, cheeks, and tongue calls attention to two different kinds of situations. A person may be trying to balance, through positive thinking, the negative effects of an influence coming from inside or outside himself, such as fear or guilt. Unfortunately, all such mental efforts have only a temporary effect because the fear and guilt remain active in the psyche. The person is counseled by this line to identify the negative influence, its source, and then to free himself of it with the help of the sage. He's advised against replacing it with positive beliefs, thoughts, or images, because doing so would prevent his natural inner program from resuming its functioning. Once his natural program is freed of what has overwritten it, it is wholly able to provide him with the appropriate responses to every given circumstance. Wow. Yeah, guys, it's not about adding anything to ourselves. It's about removing the false beliefs, the false programs in our psyche that restores our original and perfect cosmic program, which I believe is represented in the cosmic human design chart. 2, a person may believe that what he says lightly in idle conversation or what others say about him in this manner produces no harm. Nevertheless, it is mostly through idle talk that projection spells and poison arrows are created. It is a person's cosmic duty to take responsibility for everything he says and thinks, and to realize that idle talk and thoughts often cause great harm. Indeed. Receiving this line can also have the purpose of making a person aware that he is receiving a destructive influence, a projection or spell from another through the other's idle gossip. This influence, which creates his inexplicable ill feelings, needs to be intercepted and rejected. This line can also refer to an incomplete perception or misunderstanding, such as seeing another as helpless against a prevailing influence, when in actuality, he may be under a spell that needs to be recognized and removed. All right, guys, that's it for Hexagram 31, influencing. I'll see you guys in the next one.